Welcome to class, everyone. In today's session, we are going to talk about Unit 8, Lesson 2, which is Talk About Change. As you can see here, there are some words which are probably new to you. Let me talk about them one by one. Lifestyle is basically the way you live, the way you want to entertain yourself, the places where you want to eat. Security is your feeling of being secure, that nothing is going to harm you physically or mentally or financially. Crime is a harmful action that is against the law. Starvation means hunger. The adjective of starvation is starved. Starved is the same as hungry. Famine is also hunger. In a country where famine strikes, people cannot eat. They cannot produce food to feed themselves. Disease is sickness. Pollution, I think everyone knows pollution. Cure is medication, something that you take when you're sick. That is the cure to your sickness. Developed countries means countries that are already modern, that are rich. Developing countries means countries that are still developing, that are not rich yet. There are a lot of things to develop in the country. Standard of living means the way you lead your life. We can have low standard of living or high standard of living. In Phnom Penh, the standard of living is higher than that in Battambang, because in Phnom Penh everything is more expensive. After you listen to my explanation, I think you can fill in the gaps here. Use the words and phrases from exercise 2 to complete the sentences. Number 1, a lot of is caused by factories and cars. Pollution. This damages. What should be done about it? Pollution damages the environment. Number 2, many African countries suffer from, when it doesn't rain for a long time, from famine. This is hunger, where a lot of people cannot eat. A lot of people are dying. This causes starvation. People are hungry. How can we help? Number 3, do you think scientists will find the cure? Cure is medication for many diseases such as cancer. Okay. Number 4, like the G8 nations give millions of dollars every year to developed countries, like the G8 nations give millions of dollars every year to developing countries. Okay, so those are the words in context. I hope you learned something from this. Now you can listen to the reading as follows. Live 8. Are you ready to start a revolution? Are you ready to change history? These were the words of Madonna as she walked onto the stage of the London Live 8 concert. On July the 3rd, 2005, Live 8 concerts were held in 10 cities around the globe. The idea was to highlight the problem of poverty in Africa. Hundreds of millions of people around the world watched the concerts on their televisions. But how did this all start? The day that rock and roll really changed the world was 20 years earlier, on July the 13th, 1985, and all because of one man, Bob Geldof. On that day, more than 1.5 billion people around the world united together to watch the biggest rock concert ever held, Live 8. 30 million people were suffering in a terrible famine in sub-Saharan Africa. It was an event so completely shocking, happening on our television screens, with children dying in front of our eyes, that it moved everyone who saw it. The concert raised $220.6 million, Live Aid was a miracle technologically, emotionally, and politically. It is difficult now to understand what an amazing achievement it was to broadcast the first live, all-day, multi-artist concert to the whole world. In 1985, there were no cell phones and hardly any fax machines. In many countries, international phone calls usually had to be reserved, sometimes hours in advance. Computers were outside the experience of most ordinary people. Email was a future dream. Yet, surprisingly, simultaneous concerts on two continents were coordinated. Global television schedules were cleared. Live Aid started new ways of thinking and behaving in broadcasting, in putting political pressure on governments, and in raising money. Nowadays, these have become normal as more and more charities regularly use music as an instrument for change. Bob Geldof, the organizer of Live Aid and Live Aid, saw an opportunity. He wanted to make governments and people do something important to change the terrible situation. He used what he says is the lingua franca of the planet, not English, but rock and roll. And it was a fantastic success. Live Aid was one of the first indications that we now lived in a globalized world. Interestingly, its language was music, and the message it delivered so loudly and clearly was of the need for change. Here I have some questions for you to answer from the article that you just listened. And here I'm going to play this audio.
Unit 8, page 95, track 14.
The biggest change? I think it's probably been medical progress. The situation has really improved. Luckily, doctors and scientists can cure so many diseases now that were just impossible when I was younger.
That's true.
Life-saving cures and operations have become more and more common. I'm sure in the future, disease won't be such a big problem because we'll discover cures for most of the really bad diseases.
I don't know about that. There are still no cures for some of the most common diseases, like the flu. And in developing countries, there isn't enough money to pay for some of the cures, so the situation hasn't changed.
Yes, that is a problem.
No, I think that the biggest change has been the change in lifestyle. It's gotten much worse.
Worse? How?
People work too much now, and unfortunately, they don't have time to spend with their families. And when people have free time, they just watch TV. So, not surprisingly, people are getting fatter. They're always too busy to cook properly, so they eat fast food, and then they just...
You can answer the questions on the listening. Lastly, let's talk about adverbs. An adverb is usually made by adding ly to the adjective quietly, clearly. Now, adverbs of manner modify verbs. They describe the way in which something happens. She talked quietly. You cannot say she talked quiet because we need an adverb that modifies the verb. Drive carefully. We cannot say drive careful because we need an adverb that modifies the verb drive. Adverbs of manner usually comes after the verb. Now, adverbs of frequency, probability, describe how often something happens or how probable it is, how possible it is. She will probably arrive at 6 o'clock. Probably is after will here, then it comes before the verb. So adverbs of frequency usually come before the main verb. But if you have an auxiliary here, you put it after the auxiliary. If you don't have an auxiliary, number 3, adverbs of degree make a verb weaker or stronger. They may be used for emphasis. Emphasis means to give stress that something is important or not important. For example, I really want to leave now. Number 4, adverbs may also be used as discourse markers to describe your attitude. Interestingly, and then comma. So it describes the way you do something, the way you think. Number 1, for example, I will hopefully, surprisingly, definitely contact you as soon as we have any news. Which adverb cannot be used in this context? Yes, surprisingly. You cannot say, I will surprisingly contact you as soon as we have any news. No, you would say, I will hopefully contact you, or I will definitely contact you. All right, so you can do the rest, and I'm looking forward to your submission.